So today I'm going to share with you something that is very powerful. And so it would be best for you if you make a commitment to yourself to use what I'm going to share with you only for good and only for yourself. If you try to use this for others, it will not give good results. And this will make sense, hopefully, once I've explained what it is. So we are all casting magical spells pretty much all day long. And we do this with our thinking. In fact, if you think about the word spell, it obviously is referring to language. And if you think about another word that we use that means a magical spell, we use the word enchantment. And so if you think about that, that also is referring to language because chanting is the use of words. So we are casting spells with our use of language, and most of our language is, most of our thinking is structured as language. And so we are casting these spells through our thinking and use of language. So both what we're thinking internally and what it is that we say. And so, in fact, reality is totally wide open. Reality is formless, but we give it form through the use of language, through the use of words and thoughts. And so there is no such thing as anything. It doesn't actually exist. What actually exists is energy, and that energy is perceived through the use of our five senses. And then we cast a spell on ourselves by using a word. We use, let's say, the word apple. Okay. So there is no such thing as an apple. And I know sometimes people really, they think that's nonsense. They can't understand that at first, but I'll explain it. So if you consider an apple for a moment, you could imagine that you were holding an apple. And so then what is your evidence of the existence of the apple? And your evidence is that you could see it and you could feel it and you could taste it and you could, I guess, hear it if you like knocked it against your head or something, and you could smell it. And that's how you know about the apple. So what we actually experience is it happening directly through those senses. And none of that is proof of a thing. All of that is only proof of the sensory data. So there's sensory data occurring. And then we call it an apple, and suddenly we've cast a spell, and now we believe that there's something there. So there's now an entity. The entity cannot actually be known other than through the senses, but it's inferred. So there is no actual apple. There's just the illusion that there's an apple, which is created in thought. So I'm not denying that the sensory data is there. We can perceive through the senses. But the illusion is, as soon as I call it an apple, now I believe that there's a thing there, a thing independent of the sensory data. But can you find it? No, you can't, because you have no access to anything other than the sensory data. So imagine it this way. So imagine that you cannot see, and you cannot hear, and you cannot taste, and you cannot smell, and you cannot whatever the other thing is. I sometimes lose track of which one I said and which one I didn't. But the five senses, if you didn't have access to those, how do you know about the apple? You don't. So there's two possibilities. One is that there is no thing there. There is no actual apple. Or the other is that there is an apple, but you can't actually experience it. You don't know anything about it. You have no access to it. Either way, it's effectively the same thing as far as you're concerned. There's no apple for you. There's no actual apple for you. What there is the sensory data. So that's a very relatively simple example, okay, of how we cast spells. So we do this with things. And when it comes to an apple, the implications of casting a spell are, well, they're actually huge, but on a practical day-to-day basis, it's relatively small compared to what we do in terms of other things. So now think about this. So you have a name that you answer to, right? And so are you that name? The answer to that is no, right? You're not that name. Because if we took away the name, then we would say, well, you still exist, right? And you have, and then you have you have a body, and you say, well, you identify with the body, probably. And so if you didn't have that body, well, would you exist? That, depending on how you understand yourself, maybe you would say you don't exist. But you could if you were not feeling your body, would you still exist? Right? Could you imagine that you went numb and you couldn't actually feel your body? Would you still exist? Probably you would answer yes to that. And imagine that you were blind and you couldn't see your body. Would you still exist? Yes. And so, imagine you lost your sense of smell, you couldn't smell your body. Would you still exist? We could do this with each of the senses, right? So if you didn't have each of the senses, would you still exist? You would say yes. I mean, there gets a point though, it's a little questionable. How do you know that you still exist? But the point here is that your body, you only know about your body through the same senses. You identify with that, and you think that you are that thing, but that thing doesn't exist. The body doesn't exist. The body is an idea. It's a spell that you've cast. And what actually exists is sensory data. And you take that sensory data to mean the thing. You think the sensory data is proof of the body. The same way you think the sensory data is the proof of the apple, or the sensory data is proof of the chair, or the sensory data is proof of the tree, or anything else. But it's not. The sensory data is simply the sensory data. And you have associated that sensory data with an idea. And that's what a spell is, or an enchantment. So you think then also that you, now think about this. You think you have a personality. Now we start to get into something that's even more abstract, right? So we can call things, we create entities that you can't even see anything or experience anything directly of it. It's not an object in the way that an apple or a body is. The personality is this other layer of abstraction where now we say that there's an entity, this thing called a personality, but we don't even have any direct sensory data of it. Instead, it's inferred based on other things. So we can see certain things, hear certain things, and we say, oh, that's proof of the personality. Right? Like you could see behaviors, and then those behaviors we take to be evidence of a personality. Can't actually directly perceive anything that we can say that's the personality in the way that we can perceive things that we would say that's the apple. So now we've got this layer of abstraction. Now, are you the personality? So if maybe your personality has changed over time. You still exist. The personality comes and goes. The personality is malleable. It's changeable. But now think about this. When somebody says, so if you knew somebody when 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, and let's say you haven't been in contact with that person for a number of years, and somebody else talks to that person and mentions your name, and they say, do you know your name? And that person might say, yes, I know that person. Now, what do they know? They know their idea. They know their idea of you. They know their idea of your body and your personality. So here you can start to see how this becomes problematic. Maybe you run into this in your life when somebody is thinking things about you. and that does not agree with what you think about you, right? Somebody says, oh, you're lazy. And you think, what? I'm not lazy. How could you call me lazy? And you get into an argument about this because they're calling you lazy and you don't agree that you're lazy. Well, what all this happened is that each of you have cast a different spell over yourselves. So that person has cast a spell over themselves where they say that you're lazy, and you've cast a spell over yourself where you say you're not lazy. Now you have conflict. So we're doing this on so many levels, day in and day out. And this can become very problematic because then we start to believe all kinds of things that are limiting or that cause conflict and problems in our lives. So most of this, though, is we're so enchanted, so spellbound, that we become basically blind to it. We have really no idea that it's happening at all. And so we're mistaking the illusion that's cast by our spell for reality. We think that's reality. So as long as it's functional, it's basically not a problem, right? So if you say, well, that's an apple, and I can eat apples, and I like to eat apples, and and apples are nutritious, and they work for me to eat them and help to sustain my body, and I can get access to apples regularly, it's not a problem. But it starts to be a problem when certain conditions are not met that you think have to be met. So this is a very important topic. And the essence of this is question your thinking. Because if you don't question your thinking, then you are basically a victim of your own spell. And when you question your thinking, then you have the ability to change that. And I don't know the exact, I'm going to just make up a number here, but it's somewhere in the realm of 99%, if not 100% of all problems are due to the spells that you've cast. And if you've forgotten that you were doing that in the first place, and you forgot that you had the power to do something differently, then you're just a victim, and you're telling yourself another spell you cast is that you're powerless to make any change to that. And if this doesn't yet make sense to you, if I do my job, then it will make more sense to you momentarily. But this is a big deal. It's a really big deal. So when you understand this, then you have the ability to make a lot of positive change. You can definitely liberate yourself from a lot of unnecessary suffering in your life, because, I mean, this goes very deep. So when I pointed out that we cast these spells where we say, I am this body, I am this personality. Okay, so you're creating limitations for yourself. You don't like the body in some way, you don't like the personality in some way, or you don't like that there seems to be some limitation to the body or the personality. And then you seem to be powerless in the face of that, because you say, I am these things. I am this. So if I am this and I don't like it, then I'm just screwed, basically. So liberating yourself from that is enormous. So these would be basically identity beliefs. I am something. So if you question and you find out, okay, the basic inquiry that I already guided. So you ask, okay, so if I can't see it, do I still exist? Or if I can't feel it, do I still exist? If I can't hear it, do I still exist? If I don't have evidence of that thing, do I still exist? So if I say I am intelligent, now on the surface that seems great, right? Who doesn't want to be intelligent? Okay, so there's some that's functional, probably in most respects. But then if you say, I am intelligent, and then suddenly you have evidence that you're not so intelligent, now you've got a problem. Now, of course, it's obviously problematic if you say I'm stupid, right? If you believe I am stupid, that's going to lead to a lot of problems in your life. So anytime you identify as something, then it becomes problematic, and you can then use this process of investigation where you say, okay, well, if I say I am intelligent, okay, so if I am demonstrating behaviors that are intelligent, then do I exist? Yes. If I am demonstrating behaviors that are not intelligent, do I still exist? Yes. Therefore, it cannot be true that I am intelligent. You see, because if I am intelligent, then I would only exist when I am demonstrating intelligent behaviors. But since I do exist, even when I'm not demonstrating intelligent behaviors, I cannot be that thing. Okay, so if I say I am this body, probably one of the most pervasive spells that people cast, I am this body. Okay, well, have you ever existed when there was not evidence of the body? The answer to that is yes. Happens all the time. I mean, not all the time. Maybe all the time, but it definitely happens very regularly, right? So you go to sleep, you start to dream. Where's your body? Where's the actual evidence of your body in that moment? You don't have any. You might have evidence of a different body. You might identify with a dream body, but in that moment, the waking state body is not there. Do you exist in that moment? Yes, you do. So if you exist when the body is not present, then can you be the body? No. And we can also investigate that in other ways. Do you exist? So what is this body that you're talking about? What defines the body? What exactly is it? If you don't have clarity about what the thing is, this is one of the ways that we cast these spells, is with a lack of specificity and clarity. So you can say, I am something. And if you don't question what that thing actually is, then you're there you are, you've enchanted yourself, you believe you are that thing. Look at me, I am this thing, I am this thing, I am this thing. But what is that thing? What are you even talking about? If you don't know what you're talking about, then how do you know you are that? So it's easy to say something, right? I can say, I am this body, and everybody can nod and say, oh, yes, that makes perfect sense. I agree. Absolutely agree. It's nobody could doubt it. Everybody knows. Okay, but what are we talking about? What is it? And everybody might say, oh, but it's obvious. Everybody knows. How could you question? What do you mean? What are you, stupid? Yeah, everybody knows what the body is. There it is. It's right there. Okay, but what are we talking about? And on the surface, people will think that's insane. But actually, when you start to question it, you'll realize it's insane not to question it. So bear with me. Okay, so you look at the screen and you might say, well, you're seeing my body. Would you agree? Okay, so keep watching. Okay. Are you still seeing my body? What about now? You might say you're still seeing my body, right? But then what are we talking about? Wouldn't you have to agree that what you're seeing right now is different than what you're seeing now? You're seeing something different. But are you claiming that it's the same thing? Right? You're seeing two different things, and then you're saying it's the same thing. So which is it? Is it a different thing or is it the same thing? Well, we'd have to have clarity about what the thing is, right? So what is it? What is the body? So if you can't see it, and you can't smell it, and you can't taste it, and you can't touch it, and you can't hear it, what is it? And if it looks different, is it the same thing? If your evidence is visual and it looks different, is it the same thing? And if it's not the same, I mean, if it is the same thing, how do you know? Right? So if I say, okay, are you seeing my hand? You say, yes, you're seeing my hand. I say, okay, are you seeing my hand? You say, yes, you're seeing my hand. I say, okay, are you seeing my hand? You say, yes, you're seeing my hand. So what is it that you're seeing there that is the hand? Because you're seeing different things. So what exactly is the hand? If your only evidence is visual and that what you're seeing is something different, how do you know it's the same thing as something else that you're seeing that's different? How could you know that? I'll tell you the answer to that. It's because you've enchanted yourself. You've totally fooled yourself into believing that you can see something that you can't see. Congratulations, by the way, that you're still with me, because this is the kind of that we've gone off into territory that most people would think is absolutely insane. And this is probably going to be the video where I'm going to get the most, although I can never really predict. Sometimes I think it's a really nice video that nobody could really have anything bad to say of, and I get nasty comments. But I imagine this will be the one where people are going to say, this guy's absolutely bonkers. This is stupid. This is useless. But it's actually the opposite. It's very, very useful. This is when you understand this is enormously liberating. So, I mean, so if you're just watching something on a screen, right? So your only evidence of my hand is visual. I mean, I guess maybe there's some faint sound. I don't know. But you're probably not able to smell my hand, and you're not able to taste my hand. And what's the other thing? Smell, taste, hear, see, touch. You're not able to touch it, right? You can't touch my hand. So basically, you're just going on visual evidence. And you say that you can see my hand. And I'm going to say, bullshit, you can't see my hand. Because my hand doesn't exist. All you have is what you can see. And you tell yourself that you're seeing my hand, and you're seeing my hand, and you're seeing my hand, but you're not. You're seeing something. I mean, you're not even seeing something. You're seeing. There's nothing to see. There's just seeing. But the illusion that's created by the spell is that you can see something. You could see the wheels turning. So this is what we're doing to ourselves. And it might seem innocent enough. It might seem like harmless. But again, it becomes very problematic because this is what underpins all suffering. So you don't necessarily need to take it to this extreme where you say, okay, you don't need to question whether you have a hand or not. I mean, unless that's problematic for you. And for most of us, most of the time, that's not problematic. But just start to notice now the things that are problematic for you. And so one way you can do this is as you're going throughout your day, you can just notice when you start to experience problems. And then you could notice what spells you've cast because you're believing certain things, right? You're telling yourself, well, this is the situation. This is problematic. This is hopeless. This is bad. It means something. This person no longer loves me, or I'm going to starve to death because I don't have the number on my bank account isn't big enough. whatever, you tell yourself these things and create a lot of stress for yourself. So I'm going to, now here's the part where I'm going to share with you something, and this is enormously powerful. And this is the part that you really have to, you don't have to, you get to do whatever you want, but for your own benefit, I encourage you to make a commitment to yourself that you're only going to use this for good and only on yourself. Because what I'm going to share with you are some ways that you can actually question your thinking, that will give you powerful results. And, if you can use this for, if you gain skill with this, you can use this to manipulate, and don't do that. It will backfire. It's bad karma. It will come back to bite you in the ass. So don't do that. And also just use it on questioning your own thinking. If somebody else asks you to support them in questioning their own thinking, and you can do that without getting involved in unhelpful ways, wanting outcomes, and particularly if you can do it without any desire for personal gain or anything like that, then that's fine. But in other contexts, it will just work out badly. You'll lose friends, and it just, don't do that. It will just annoy people. It won't help them. But for yourself, questioning your own thinking is very, very powerful. So I'm not the only one, of course, who's pointed out that it can be valuable to question your own thinking. For people who have the I don't know what to call it, they have the experience of living in the United States, then you'll know about the phenomenon of bumper stickers. I understand that this is not everywhere, but at least in the United States, we like to decorate our cars with stickers. And they usually have sayings on them. And one such bumper sticker is one that says, "Don't believe everything you think." So, it's good advice, but then how does one actually go about not believing everything they think? Because for most people, it's just automatic. It's like, that reflex. If you tap the thing on the knee, then it causes the reflex. It's sort of like a person thinks something, they believe it. And so how do you not do that? And there are teachings which provide certain techniques that are meant to help you with this. And what I found is, for most people, those fall flat. And not that they can't be of benefit, they certainly can, but they often lack enough information to allow a person to really make use of it. So what I want to provide you with is some useful information that can allow you to actually effectively question your thinking. And so understanding that, like I said, we cast these spells through the use of language. So your thinking, of course, thinking is not limited to language, but oftentimes our thinking is informed by language. It's a interesting choice of words. It's true, informed. It takes form through language. So, so becoming aware of the language that you're using can be really helpful. And so, become aware of the thoughts that you actually have in terms of the language that you're using. And then and certainly you can also pay attention to the words that you use when you speak out loud. Because when you speak out loud, you're not only casting spells over yourself, but you're also at least attempting to cast spells over others. And most of the time, it works, for better or for worse. And a lot of the time for worse, because what happens is that these spells of limitation are woven over large groups of people. And so you see that people and that's what a culture is. A culture is, because a culture cannot be distinguished from its language. The culture and the language go together. That's because the language defines how we think, how we perceive. And so they go hand in hand. They're one and the same, the culture and the language. And so a culture is defined by the language, and it determines how people think and perceive. And so that's why different cultures can be so different. I mean, they can be very, very, very different because it has to do with how we think and perceive. And so you can have groups of people who, for them, it's like the large groups of people, for them, the Christian God is the one true God. And then for another large group of people, the one true God is Allah. And for some of them, they will fight to the death over this. And I'm not going to tell you who's right, but, or that either of them is right. There's a presupposition that one of them is right. But that's a presupposition is one of the spells. One of the ways that we cast spells is we present either this or that as if those are the only two options. Now notice, as soon as somebody does that, would you care for an apple or an orange? And suddenly your world has become very small. Oh, I could have an apple or an orange. So that's one of the ways that we cast spells. So you want to notice that kind of use of language in your own thinking and speaking when you limit things in that way. If anytime you're saying either or, then just be aware that you're casting a spell and you're limiting options. So if it's giving you, the thing with all this is, if it's giving you good results, by all means, keep doing it. It's great. Although maybe you could consider the option that you might be able to get even better results. So there's that. But as long as you're happy with the results, it's fine. It's just mostly you want to take a look at this when you're not happy with the results. So being aware of the language that you use can be really helpful for allowing you to open up more options in your life so that you can maybe have better results. So either or kinds of language is a big red flag. Just be aware of that and notice that that can't actually be true. I mean, well, I suppose there are certain conditions under which it could be true. Like we could say that, either there's this thing or there's everything else. Even that might be not entire. That even might be limiting, right? But we could say there's this or there's everything else, and that sort of is inclusive of everything. But most of the time when we are using language in that way, we're not using it in that way exactly. We're usually limiting it to apple or orange. Do you like my hair or not? Like, maybe somebody doesn't care. Maybe it doesn't matter at all. Maybe they're neutral on it. It's like you're limiting things there unnecessarily. But it's reflective of the spell that you've cast on yourself, right? The way that you're thinking, the way that you present those things, it's offering you insight into what you're doing to yourself, because you've limited yourself in that way. You've limited your options by that way of thinking. So some other things, and this is not in any way meant to be an exhaustive list. I mean, this is a subject that can be investigated for a lifetime. It's a very deep and broad subject. So please understand this is just a cursory introduction to this topic. Some other examples would be using language that uses words like always and never. You might be surprised to notice how often you do that, because many people do speak using these terms always and never. And when you say always or never, really question that, because it's very rare that would be a true statement. But when you say that, you're, again, casting a spell that allows you to believe that that's true. So you say, he never calls. He never calls? Well, I mean, how could that be true? How do you know that he never called? I mean, I guess you could say, if somebody could say, maybe it would be a true fact that he never called if he's dead now, and he never actually called. Like you could say, I mean, even that would maybe not be true, but you could qualify it. You could say, so long as he lived, Ronald Reagan never called me personally. Maybe that's a factual statement, but that's not usually the way that we use those terms, always and never, right? We usually use them in ways that are not factually accurate. We'll say, he never calls. Well, usually not actually true. In the context when we use that kind of language, it's usually meant to suggest that this person, I'm not even sure what exactly it's meant to mean. I mean, it would differ from context to context, but oftentimes in those situations, it's not even clear what that's meant to mean, because it's usually not factually true. But you can notice what the effect is. They're always rude. They always do that. They always do that. Really? Can that be true? Can somebody always do something? Here, we have to really get clear on, again, the definition being used. So what does it mean to always do something? It's a vague statement, not clear. Because does that mean somebody, like, are they doing that thing every second, every hour, once a day, continuously? What does that mean, actually? Also, words like should, have to, those are words to watch for like a hawk, because those limit options like you wouldn't believe. And I've noticed that many people's thinking seems to be cluttered with a lot of those kinds of ideas. Now, remember what I said, use this only for yourself, not for others, because otherwise what can happen is, like I said, you'll just annoy people and lose friends. And also, it will be hurtful for you, because if you're wasting your time and energy analyzing everybody's language, it's not actually helping you, right? So if you're going to, analyze the way that I say things, and then I say things like always and never, you think, oh, well, there he is. This is why this video on YouTube is just going to invite more of this kind of things from the people who want to think in that way, right? That now they're like, aha, got him, hypocrite. But then it would just have been a misunderstanding, because the point here is not to say that there's a pure and perfect way to be, and that I am that pure and perfect way to be. That's not the point at all. The point is just simply bring awareness so that you can help yourself to liberate yourself from unnecessary limitations, so that you can open up more options for yourself. And this can be enormously powerful. So if you notice that you're thinking in ways or speaking in ways where you say, I have to, notice how you feel when you think and speak in that way. And I can virtually guarantee you don't like the way you feel. And sometimes it might be really small. Sometimes it's just like, you almost don't even notice it, right? Because it's like, well, I have to do this thing later today. And it's like, not even a big deal to you, right? Like, I got to go pick up groceries. Yeah. Who cares? Not a big deal, right? But actually, you're still limiting options, because you don't have to. It's not true. You don't have to. And so when you notice that, then it can be helpful just to tell the truth, which is, I choose to. Right? I'm choosing to do these things. Now you might say, oh, who cares? What difference does that make? Well, it can make a big difference. Try it out. I mean, if you're still thinking about it and understanding, if you just change the word, but you don't actually notice what it is that you're intending, if you're still intending, I have to, and you say, I choose to, although it's kind of hard to do that, then it wouldn't produce much change. But if you actually start to notice what you're intending when you say, I have to, and you practice self-honesty, and then you change that to, I choose to, and you notice what you actually mean by that, it makes a world of difference, because suddenly you realize that you have options. Nobody's making you do anything. You don't have to do anything. You're choosing to do it. And if you don't like it, guess what? You could choose something different, right? It's like if you don't want to do the thing, then don't do it. But when we speak in ways where we say, I have to, not only does it limit options, but it also leads to feeling like a victim, because you say, I have to, like, life is forcing me to do this thing. Look at me, poor me. I've got to go do these things. Wah. And you might think, oh, it's not a big deal. It's actually a big deal. Check it out. You'll find out that it makes a big deal. So because when you tell the truth and you recognize that you're choosing to do it, then you have, like I say, options. Number one, you could choose not to do the thing if you really don't want to do it. Wouldn't that be nice? Two, if you actually want to do the thing, you could tell the truth about that when you say, I choose to do the thing. So you might say, well, it's not in and of itself, that activity is not something I would necessarily choose to do just for its own sake, but I am choosing to do it because I want what it offers me, right? Like you might say, I don't really, like if for an activity in and of itself, going and getting groceries might not be a thing that I would choose to do just for its own sake, just, for shits and giggles, like, let's go grocery shopping. Okay. However, I choose to go grocery shopping because I want the food and I like having the food. I value that. And therefore, I choose to go grocery shopping. That's a lot different than I have to go grocery shopping. So telling yourself the truth about those things, and also, like I said, the words should and shouldn't, those serve basically the same kind of purpose. So with these, it can be useful, so choosing is a helpful reframe, but also you can ask yourself questions. Like if you're thinking, I should eat the spinach. I should eat the spinach. Ask yourself, says who? Come on. Because if you say should, there's an implication that there's someone who's determining that this is true and you're accepting their authority. So be honest with yourself. Who is that? Who says that? And why are you taking their word for it? Why are you going to live your life according to what they say? A lot of the time, you don't even know who's according to who, right? It's just everybody knows you should eat the spinach. Everybody knows that. That's why I should do it. But how are you feeling about that? If you're thinking I should, right away, if you think you should, there's at least some part of you that really doesn't want to. So how's that going to work out for you? It's not going to work out well at all, because if you're creating inner conflict, that's creating stress in your life. So if you get clarity that you want to eat the spinach and you feel good about eating the spinach and you have inner coherence regarding the spinach and there's no longer conflict and you're like, no, all parts of me are on board with eating the spinach. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. I'll feel good. I like the taste of spinach. It's all awesome. Then it's going to be a good thing. But if there's a part of you that's like, oh, spinach, this is terrible, but I should. Then you've got inner conflict. And a lot of times people get so fixated on the things they should do, and they overlook the fact that what's closer to home is what's going on in you. So if you're saying, I should eat the spinach, because everybody knows eating spinach is good. It's healthy. It's good for you. Everybody knows it. So you're thinking you should eat the spinach because it's healthy. Well, how healthy is it to have inner conflict? How healthy is it to be creating distress within yourself? You might want to consider that. Because you could, how much spinach do you need to eat to offset the negative consequences of all the distress that you're creating for yourself with the shoulds? And that's probably diminishing returns there, because you create more distress the more spinach you should eat. So questioning through and being aware of the language that you use. Another, just briefly, like I said, this is a really deep and broad thing. You could explore this for a lifetime. There's so much here to explore. But I'll just give you one more thing that you could be aware of. So assigning meaning to things is another one, where you say, X means Y. Okay, so, if I don't exercise, then I will, be weak. So exercise equals strength, right? So the positive version there would be, if I exercise, then I'll be strong. Now, a lot of people will say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, again, it's just that it limits options. And that's just one example. I mean, this turns out at a lot of things in life. So you just start to pay attention. You'll notice that you make equivalency between things. You say, this thing amounts to this other thing. This thing equals this other thing. So if my spouse is angry, then I have to be upset. And so you're saying these two things are equal. They go together, but they don't actually go together. You've just made that up. You just determined that for yourself. It's not true apart from that. So this is another one of those patterns to just pay attention to and notice in your own thinking and use of language, because all of the way that you think and the language that you use is reflecting how it is that you're structuring your experience. So if you don't like something about your experience, then you can change that at the level of language, at least just being aware of it. Because again, that's the power of it. That's this spell. So if you don't like the spell, then, basically you're casting black magic on yourself. You're like, why do I feel so bad? Check it out, right? Like you've done that. So you could either just release yourself from that, or if you want to cast white magic, you could do that, right? But stop doing the things to yourself that are hurting you. Stop limiting your options. You can offer yourself better options, more options, healthier options that give you better results. And that's all available to you. So that's the introduction to that subject. And if you take the invitation and you explore that regularly, just those few things that I pointed out. I mean, if you just start to notice just those few things, that can make a big difference in your life. I mean, even if you just started to pay attention and notice when you say have to, just that one thing And please use this in a gentle way. Don't beat yourself up about it. Don't do that to yourself. I know that trip, I've seen that happen. Don't do that. Let it be playful. But if you make it playful, if you make it a game where you're just noticing, it's like, oh, that's interesting. There I just did it again. I just said I have to. And you'll probably catch yourself doing it. You'll have a conversation and it will just slip out of your mouth. I have to. Or I've gotta. It's the same kind of thing, right? I gotta do the thing. Well, you'll notice those things will just slip out of your mouth. And then you can know that through that awareness, you can offer yourself new options. So you're not bound by that. Once you can break the spell through awareness. The moment you're aware of it, the spell can be broken. So don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh no, I said it, it's too late. Oh no, made terrible things happen. No, it's like, oh, there I noticed it. Okay, spell broken. You're not bound by that. You can choose anew. So now what do you want? Well, I choose. Just remind yourself of that. It's like, I don't have to do anything. I can choose if I want. I choose to do that thing. But then you can know whether you actually choose to do that thing, because you don't have to. You could choose. And understand, a lot of the time, the spells have been cast so deeply that there are layers upon layers of it where we think, wow, but and this also has to do with that kind of equivalency where we say, well, I have to do the thing, because if I don't, then it means this other thing, right? Like I have to lie to my spouse, because if I don't lie to my spouse, then my spouse will leave me. And it's like, okay, but do you actually even know that's true? No, you can't know that it's true because it's not actually true. Your spouse might leave you. That's a possibility. But that's not necessarily tied to you lying or not. I mean, like, there may be some kind of relationship there, but it's not like that. Like, this equals that. I have to lie because otherwise my spouse will leave me. That's something, that's another spell that you've cast. So there can be many of these layers, and sometimes people, because of that, they refuse to break the spell, right? They don't want to get out of, they say, no, I can't choose something. I don't want to acknowledge that I'm choosing something. I'm going to keep telling myself that I have to, because I don't want to actually face all of the rest of the spell that I've cast over myself, because I feel too intimidated, too scared. But just notice, when you do that, you're limiting your options and you're unhappy with the results. This is almost certain when people are speaking in those ways. I have to, because they're not feeling good about that. And so you have the power. You can choose to liberate yourself from that just by being aware and questioning in this way. And like I said, keep it simple. Focus just on yourself. Don't do this to other people, because hopefully you can see this is going to be obnoxious. People don't want you calling them out and say, really, you have to? Are you sure about that? Maybe you're just choosing. People are like, no, I have to. Let them have to. It's their business. It's none of your business. But just be aware of how you do it to yourself. And you can change your life with that. So that's it. For those who are here live, we'll stay on for the group coaching. For those who are watching this on YouTube, just a couple of things. Number one, if you would like to attend these meetings live, I invite you to do so. You can get that information by signing up for my newsletter on my website at joylot.com. And also, when you sign up, you will get instant access to the free ebook, which is about the 5 fundamental laws that govern creation. When you have that information, then you are empowered to start making changes in your life. And I also wanted to also mention that I do have a paid program called Manifesting Truth, and I encourage people who are interested in this kind of thing, who want to gain self-mastery and have more options in their life, to consider participating in that program. It's a 9-week system that allows you to simply and effectively put into practice in your life those things which will help you, it will empower you to be able to consciously create your life. And you get 9 weeks of group coaching with me, which is enormously valuable because I can point out your blind spots and help you to make much more rapid progress that way. Honestly, I really do encourage people to participate in that because it's the best way that I can offer support. These Monday meetings are awesome. And if you really want to take it to the next level, then Manifesting Truth is the way to go. And you can get more information about that on my website at joeylott.com/manifesting-truth. And I'll provide a link in the description below. So for those who are here live, like I said, we'll stay on for group coaching, and for everybody on YouTube, see ya. Bye for now. And blessings to you all.